So we're again in 2.5. We're on page 141, and we're going to look at question number 12 here. Now, we're going to read it through. We're going to talk about what all the parts are. We're going to make our equation, and now we're going to be solving this equation. So question 12. The product of 5 and 3 more than twice the number is 85. So product means multiply. Now the and is where we're going to use parentheses, because that's going to kind of separate things out. That is means equals. So let's see what we got here. The product of 5, so that's going to go out front and we write that. 5 is here. And this is on, again, page 141. We're going to be looking at question 12. We've got the 5 in front. Product means multiply. And means we start the parentheses. What's going to go in the parentheses? 3 more than twice a number. Okay, 3 more than twice a number would be 2x plus 3. Okay, so we have our 5 in front. The and means we're going to do that. Put parentheses there. Is means equals. And what does it equal? Okay, it equals 85. Now, how do we finish this? We've done a lot of these so far. We distribute the 5 through the 2x and the 3, just like we've done. When we distribute that through, that leaves me then with a 10x. 5 times 3 is 15. That equals your 85. What's my next step going to be? Can someone tell me? Move the 15 over with subtraction, because it needs to go to the right. And that leaves you now with 10x equals 85 minus 15, that's a 70. And what's my last step? Very last thing we always do is divide. So what are we going to do now? We're going to divide both sides by what? 10. So divide both sides by the 10. Let's see if it comes out to be a whole number. In this case it does. So it comes out to be the whole number of what? 10. Or sorry, 7. Not 10, so 7. Here's my answer. Let me get a better marker. X equals the 7. So again, we have to be very careful that a lot of times and means parentheses. So if you see the and there, like the product of something and, that's usually going to mean we've got to use parentheses. 16. If 3, we're on question 16, if 3 is added to a number and this sum is double, we got the and there, sum is double, the result is, that means equals, 2 more than the number. We need to find the number. So let's see what we've got. If 3 is added to a number, so let's write that up. 3 is added to a number, so that's x plus 3. And that is doubled. Okay. Now the and there means we've got to put parentheses around it. We're going to double it. So we're going to have to put parentheses around this, and when we double it, multiply it by 2. Right? Remember that and there, when you see that and, that means parentheses. So we have to double that sum. The result is, that means equals, when we go through it, 2 more than the number. So 2 more than the number would be x plus 2. So that's what we've got. Now we can finish it. So we distribute through the 2. And so that gives you 2x, and 2 times 3, that makes it a 6. And next step would be to do what? Just so we understand how to solve these, what would we do next? Yep. Okay, you can do it either way. You can move things around. What I would do is I always like to work with the variables. And this variable needs to go to the other side. So I'm going to subtract off an x. You can do it any way that you like. I always try to do it the same way every time, and I always move the variables to the left first, numbers then move to the right. So that's the way I do it. So we have a 2x and a minus x. That leaves you with an x plus 6. The x's here cancel, and that equals then 2. Now, the variables are all on the left-hand side, so what needs to go over to the right now? So I'm going to move that 6 over, and that leaves you then with x equaling now a negative 4, doesn't it? So that would be your final, finished answer there. Let's do another one. Let's look at 19. So first thing we always do is we read the question, and then we look at it bit for bit. So I always read it as a whole once through, just so I kind of get an idea of what I'm doing, and then I go back and I look at each piece. The sum of 3 times a number and 7 more than the number is the same as the difference of a minus 11 and twice the number. What is the number? So let's think about what we've got here. The sum of 3 times a number and 7, more than that number. So the sum of 3 times a number, so what's that piece going to be at the very beginning? Okay, that piece is going to be what? 3x, right? Sum of 3 times a number, okay, times and multiplied. So that first piece is going to be 3x. So that's the first part that we have here. Is everyone okay with that? So 3 times a number, I wrote that down as a 3x. And we're going to sum, so we're going to add it to. What are we going to add to that? Let's read it now. Okay, so we've got a sum, 3 times a number, and 7 more than the number. So we're going to add to that 7 more than the number. So that would be x plus what? 7. Okay. Is the same as, so that means equals, right, as we're going along. The same as means equals. The difference, so we're going to be subtracting here, the difference of minus 11 and twice the number. So difference means subtract. So what are we doing? We're taking the difference of minus 11 and twice the number. So that's going to be minus 11. And what are we going to subtract from that? Twice the number. And so that's going to be what now? 2x, right? So we're subtracting them. So difference of between them. We've got minus 11. Second part's that 2x, so we subtract them. Now we can work it out. These can go together, and that makes it a 4x plus 7 equals a minus 11 minus 2x. What would I do next here? I would go ahead and add that 2x over. So let's go ahead and add that 2x over. And that leaves me then with a 6x plus 7 equals a negative 11. Next step would be to do what? Minus 7. Okay, I'm just making sure we can solve these. And that leaves you then with 6x equals, those go together, negative 18. Be careful with your signs. Those go together and give you a negative 18. And what's my last step going to be? Divide by 6 and reduce. And 18 divided by 6, that's a 3. It's a negative. So my answer would be x equals now negative 3. Now we're going to be looking at several different types of problems in this section of applications. The first type that we're going to look at is we're going to look at things that involve a total. And the way I work these out is I write them out in words, and then I put the variables in after that. These are going to involve, though, a total. So we're still in 2.5. And let's look at question 24. So this involves a total. And this is on page 142. Question 24. We're going to read it through once, and then we're going to go back and look at each part individually and see what needs to happen. Two of the most watched episodes in television were the final episodes of MASH and Cheers. The total number of viewers for these two episodes was about 92 million, with 8 million people more watching MASH than watched the Cheers. How many people watched each episode? Okay, so this one has a total. See, it says total here. Now, what are we working with? We are working with two different TV shows. So the two different TV shows are MASH, right? So we've got MASH, and what else? Cheers. Okay, so MASH and Cheers are the two shows. And what's happening with them? Do we have a total? Yes, that's our first thing. Whenever we see a total, that means we're going to work it out like this. They're all the same when they have a total. So the total. Okay, the total in this case is 92. Don't worry about the million. We'll put the million on later. So don't worry about the labeling at all. Just use that number, 92. So that is my total. Okay, so let's write up an equation that involves our total. So we've got our total equals 92. So what does that mean? That means the MASH series, or episodes, plus the Cheers episodes equals now what? 92. We're going to come back to this in a moment. But that's my total, right? This is the total here. They add together to give you 92. Now we need to somehow eventually come up with an equation. So that's our total. We did that first. First thing we did. Now, how do they relate to each other? When we continue on, with 8 million more people watching MASH than Cheers. So 8 million more people watched MASH. So MASH is going to equal the Cheers plus 8. Is everyone okay with that? Because they have 8 million more. I'm writing it out in words first. Then we'll plug it in over here, and we'll solve it, and we'll get the two shows. Attendance. So MASH is going to equal the Cheers plus 8. Now, what about the Cheers? Do we know anything about the Cheers at all? No. We know nothing about the number of Cheers shows or people watch the Cheers show. So we're going to use an X there. One of these is going to be X, and that's the one that we don't know. So we don't know Cheers at all. We know nothing about it. But we know MASH is going to be the Cheers plus 8 million. Now we can get it all in terms of the variable. Okay, Cheers is going to stay at X. And what about MASH? Okay, MASH is Cheers plus 8. And what did we call the Cheers now? X. So what's MASH going to be? MASH is now going to be X plus what? 8. And I'm going to put a box around it just so we can see what we've got and what we're working with. Okay, so now we can replace it with the total. So this is our total over here. This is going to build our equation. We know what MASH is. We know what the Cheers is. We plug them in. What did we find MASH to be? With the variable, that's going to be X plus 8. What did we find Cheers to be? X. And what is that going to equal again from our total? 92. See how I kind of worked it out? I do my total first. I like to write everything out in words, try to figure out what I'm doing before I put the variables in at all. Now we can finish it. So what do we know? We can put these x's together. So add them together, and that gives you now what? Okay, 2x plus 8 equals your 92. And how can we finish it? What's next? Yep, subtract off that 8 from each side. And that leaves you with 2x equaling what? 84, I believe. Let me double check. I always double check myself. 92 minus 8. Yep, that should be your 84. And we'll finish it by dividing by 2. And now we've got part of our answer. So 84 divided by 2. Well, that should be a 42, isn't it? Let me double check. Yep, 42. Now, what do we specifically want? Let's make sure we answer the question. How many people watched each episode? Right? So we have X. X is not our answer yet. We haven't labeled it at all. Now we can finish it. So what do we know about MASH? MASH is X plus 8. And what did we find X to be? 42. So plug it in. So plugging that in, we get 42 plus our 8. And that gives you then what? 50. And we're looking at viewers, and this is in millions. So 50 million people watched the MASH episode. And what about the Cheers episode? Okay, well, the Cheers episode is just X. So Cheers is then going to be what? 42 million. Did we answer the question? Yes, because what did the question want us to find? How many people watched each episode? We put the millions on because that's what the units are. When we talked about the number of viewers, it talks about our total was 92 million. So we made sure then that we labeled it with the million. We got our two parts, and that's what they wanted. We used the fact that we had a total. They're all going to be done in a similar manner. Let's do question 26. We're going to look now at question 26 here. During the 115th session, the total number of Democrats and Republicans in the House of Representatives was 434. There were 46 more Republicans than Democrats. How many members of each party were there? So what we're going to have to look at again is the total. So when we talk about the total, what does that mean? We've got a total. And when we read this, what are we looking at? We're looking at Republicans. And we are looking at Democrats. So we're looking at Republicans and we're looking at Democrats. So we don't know either one, but we do know a total. What is our total? Total's 34, isn't it? Yep. Total is 434. So that's my total. So what is that going to be? I like to write it out so there's no question about what we're working with. That's going to be the Republicans plus the Democrats. That's going to equal that 434, right? That is my total. Now we look at each one. And what do we know here? We know there were 46 more Republicans than Democrats. So we've got our Republicans. And we've got our Democrats. And what do we know? We know there are more Republicans than Democrats. So that's going to be our Democrats. And I'll abbreviate that. So the Democrats, we'll abbreviate that DEM. Plus what? How many more? 46, right? There were 46 more Republicans than Democrats. Now, do we know how many Democrats we have? No. That is the unknown, so that is going to go with the variable x. Now we can rewrite it. And I'm going to abbreviate these. So Republicans. What do we have? Democrats plus 46. What did we call the Democrats? X. So that's going to be x plus 46. The Democrats, we don't know. So that is still our x there. Okay. So now we can rewrite it. So Republicans, what's going to go here? That's going to be x plus 46. What about the Democrats? X. And what does that equal still? 434, doesn't it? Okay, now we can combine these together. And so if I put these together, the x's go together first. So that's 2x plus 46. And that equals the 434. Okay, now we can finish it, because what am I going to do? I'm going to move that 46 over. And now we've got 2x equals 434 minus that 46. That's 385. We'll divide by our 2. And what do we get x to now be? Divide that by our... Oh, wait a minute. Did I make sure? Yep, I added wrong here. 434, right? Minus that 46. I saw it was wrong there. It should be 3. I wrote it down wrong. 388, right? Now we divide that 388 by 2, and it should come out to be 194. Okay, so how many do we have of each one? Well, Republicans. Okay, we've got x plus 46. So that's going to be 194 plus your 46. And what does that give you? That gives you, when you add them together, 240, doesn't it? So that's our first answer. And these aren't really labeled at all. It just says number of Democrats, Republicans, so we don't really have to label it. You could put seats if you want to, but we'll just leave that at 240. What about the Democrats? That's X, and how many Democrats do we have? 194. So is everyone kind of okay with how these are working? Okay, let's now look at one where we have to set them up as a ratio as well. So let's look now at, let's see, how about we look at question 32. Same thing again, a little bit different, works off of a total. These are all going to work off of a total. So question 32. A 1 cup serving of pineapple juice has 9 more than 3 times as many calories as a 1 cup serving of tomato juice. Servings of the two juices contain a total of 173 calories. How many calories are in each serving of the types of juice? So again, First thing I do is I recognize that this is a total. And what are we looking at here for my total? What two types of juices do we have? We've got pineapple juice and we've got tomato juice. We've got pineapple and we've got tomato. So those are our two types of juices that we're looking at here. And we have a total, so let's find that total. When we add them together, we get a total of what? We get a total of 173. So that's going to be our pineapple plus our tomato equals 173. Okay, so that's where we're going to begin. We need to see how they relate to each other. So what do we know here? It says a 1 cup serving of pineapple juice has 9 more than 3 times as many calories as a 1 cup serving of tomato juice. So the pineapple juice is 9 more, so that means added, 9 plus, 3 times as many calories as the tomato juice. So that's going to be 3 times the tomato juice plus 9, right? Is everyone okay with how I got that? Because if we read it, it says 9 more, so that's the adding there, than 3 times as many calories as a 1 cup serving of tomato juice. So that's where that came from. Now, do we know anything at all about the tomato juice? No. So we're going to use an X to represent that. Now we can rewrite it. And we've got our pineapple. 3 times the tomato juice plus 9. So that's 3x plus 9. Tomato juice is still unknown. So that's your x. So this is what we've got to work with so far. So now we take what we've got and we replace. We replace the pineapple with 3x plus 9. We replace the tomato with the x. Now we can finish it by combining them together. So how many x's do I have total? Looks like I've got 4x plus 9, and that equals 173. We'll move that 9 over with subtraction. And that gives you 4x now equals 164, I believe. But I always double check myself. So 173 minus that 9. Okay, that does give me that 164. We'll divide by the 4. And what is x now going to be? Okay, x comes out to be, when we divide by that 4, that comes out to be 41. Now, what do our two juices have for the calories? Let's plug them in and see. Let's first work with our pineapple juice. So the pineapple is 3x plus 9. So that's going to be 3. We're going to plug in our 41, right? 41 gets plugged in. So 3 times that 41 plus 9. How many calories do we have now for the pineapple juice? Okay, plus 9. That gives you 132, and that's going to be calories. So 132 calories for the pineapple juice. And what about the tomato juice? It was just x. And that is now 41 calories. So 132 calories for the pineapple juice and 41 calories for the tomato juice. Now, how do we know we did it correctly? Well, these should add together to give you 173. So 132 plus 41, what does that give you? 173, and that is our total. So it is a little bit more difficult than the others. Not much, but we're adding just a little bit to it. Let's now look at, how about 34? Okay, 34, we're going to have to work with a fractional part. A workout that combines weight training and aerobics burns a total of 371 calories. If weight training burns 2/5 as many calories as aerobics, how many calories does the weight training burn? Okay, so let's think about what we've got. We've got a workout, and it's aerobics and weight training, right? And do we have a total? Yep, we do. What's our total? Yep, so that's the first thing I do is I try to find that total. And that total is 371. And then I've got my aerobics plus the weight. That equals our 371. So that's what I always do at the beginning. I find the total, and I write out what we've got. So we've got weight training and aerobics. They add together, and they give you that 371. You can do it other ways that are a little bit faster. I like to write everything out so you can see how the pieces relate to each other. So that's the first thing I did, was I got my total, and I got the two items to compare. Now, how do they relate to each other? It says a workout that combines weight training and aerobics is 371. If weight training burns 2/5 as many calories as aerobics. So weight training is going to be 2/5 the number of aerobic calories. So that's 2/5 times the aerobics. And weight and aerobics we don't know, so that's going to be our x. Is everyone okay with that? So weight training is 2/5 of the aerobics. Now, when I rewrite this with our variable x, what's my weight going to be? Weight training. That's going to be 2/5 x, isn't it? And the aerobics is unknown, so that's your x. Let's box those so we don't lose them. I always like to do that so I don't lose things. It's easy to lose track of what you're working on, so that's why I like to box things. Now we fill it in. Aerobics is unknown, that's the x. Weight training is 2/5 x, and that equals your 371. That's what we've got. Now, why don't we clear out our fractions? We only have one fraction, and what am I going to have to multiply everything by to clear out my fractions? Does anyone know? Multiply all of this by what number? 5. Okay. So that gives me now 5x. 5s and 5s cancel. That leaves you with a 2x. And do not forget, 5 times 371, you have to do that. 5 times your 371, well, that's 1855. Those can go together, giving you 7x equals now 1855. We'll divide by our 7. And that gives you X equaling now 265. Now, we need to go ahead and get both of these. So let's go ahead and do that. We know our variable X, and then we'll box the one that is our answer, because it only asks for the weight training. We're going to go ahead and get both of them, and then we'll just box the weight training. So the weight training is 2/5 X. So that means we're going to plug in that 265. Okay, so we're going to use that 265, and we're going to plug it in. Write it as a fraction over 1. So we've got 2/5 times 265 over 1. Now, I can cross cancel here, because that 265 and that 5, that has a 5 in it. And that's going to leave me then with a 53 and a 1. And now we just multiply 2 times that 53. That's 106. So that's 106 calories. And that's your weight training. That's what we want. What's the other one going to be? I'm not going to box the other one, but the aerobics would be what? X. That is going to be 265 calories. Now, all we need is what? Is the weight training. So that's why I only box that one. You could box them both if you want, as long as I find out the one that you need is there. So if you wrote them both out, that's okay. I found them both, but then I boxed the one that I needed. And I needed the weight training, so that's why I put a box around that. Question 40. We'll do a few more, and then we'll finish up 2-5 next week. Question 40 here. This one works with a ratio. So these are going to be ratios here. A medication contains 9 milligrams of active ingredients for every 1 milligram of inert ingredients, so fillers. How much of each kind of ingredient would be contained in a single 250 milligram capsule? So when you go get medicine or vitamins, a lot of times what happens is you have the active ingredients, the minerals or the vitamins, and then some kind of filler. Maybe it makes it taste better, maybe it's a colorant, but there's something else in there. So that's an inert ingredient. So you have the active ingredients and the fillers, or the inert ingredients. So that's what we've got. We've got active ingredients, and then I'm just going to call it the filler. So we've got the active ingredients and we've got the filler, and we're going to add these together. And that gives me a total of 250. So that's going to go here. Right? We want to get this 250 milligram tablet. So the active ingredient look like a V there. So we've got our active ingredients plus our filler, our inert ingredients. And that makes our 250 milligram tablet. Now, how do they relate to each other? What does it say here? We have to be careful how we read these. It says a medication contains 9 milligrams of active ingredients for every 1 milligram of inert ingredients. So it's a 9-to-1 ratio. So there's 9 times as much active ingredients. So the active ingredients would be 9 times the amount of the filler. And the filler, we don't know that's X, because it says it's a 9-to-1 ratio. That means it's 9 times as much. Now when we fill this in, our active then is going to now be 9x, and our filler, the inert ingredients, is still x. So now we fill it in. The active ingredient is 9 times as much, so that's 9x. That goes over here. The filler is x, and that gives you 250. Putting those together, that's 10x equals 250. Divide by our 10, and now we've got x to come out to be what? X comes out to be 25. We need to make sure we get the answers for the question. The question specifically says how much of each kind of ingredient. So the filler and the active ingredients. So the active ingredient is 9x. So we're going to take this 25 and we're going to plug it in. So that is then 9 times that 25. And 9 times that 25 is 225. And that's going to be milligrams. We still need to find the filler or the inert ingredients, and that's x. And so it's 25 milligrams. Let's try another one of these. And how about we look at question 43? I think we'll do 2 more, and then that'll be it for today. And then we'll talk about which ones you can go over in your homework. Because you won't be able to do all of 2.5 yet, but you'll be able to do a good portion of it. So question 43. So a party length sandwich is 59 inches total, and it is cut into 3 pieces. The middle piece is 5 inches longer than the shortest piece, and the shortest piece is 9 inches shorter than the longest piece. How long is each piece? So in this one, we've got 3 parts. So we're going to take the sandwich, and we're going to cut it into 3 pieces. So what do we have? We have a short side, or short piece, a middle, and we have the long piece. This again works off a total, and what's my total? Did someone tell me? Yep, total is going to be that 59. And so when I write this out, we have the short side plus the middle plus the longest side, or the long side, and that equals your 59. So it's the same as what we've done before, it's just that now we have 3 parts instead of just having the 2 parts. And now we need to see how all of these parts relate to each other. So when we read that second sentence, it says the middle piece is 5 inches longer than the shortest piece. So the middle is 5 inches longer than the short side. So that's going to be the short plus 5 for the middle, right? Okay, 5 more. That makes sense there. And the shortest piece is 9 inches shorter than the longest piece. So the shortest piece is 9 inches shorter than the longest piece. So that means the short side is going to be the long piece minus 9. And which one do we know absolutely nothing about? Long piece, so that's going to be x. Let's read it and make sure we have it right. Party length sandwich is 59 inches total. So that's there. It's cut into 3 pieces, a short side, a middle side, and a long side. They add together to give you the 59. Okay, that's okay there. The middle piece is 5 inches longer than the shortest piece. So the middle piece is going to be the short plus 5. The shortest piece is 9 inches shorter than the longest piece. So that means that your short side is 9 inches shorter than the longest side. So that's the long side minus 9. We know nothing about the long side, so that's going to be our x there. Now we can start replacing. And we'll just do these one at a time. Now we know the longest side is x, so that doesn't change at all. Longest side is x, so let's go up to the short side. What's the short side? Long minus 9, so that's going to be x minus what? 9, right? And what about the middle side? Okay, this is where we have to be careful. Middle side is the short side plus 5, so that's x minus 9. And then what do we have to add to that? 5, okay, because you still have the 5 there. And when we put them all together, what does that give you? X minus 4. So there's our parts. Minus 9, x minus 4, and the x there. Now we can plug it in. And so the short side, that's x minus 9. Middle side, x minus 4. Longest side is unknown. That is your x. Now let's go ahead and solve this. So combine. Looks like we've got 3 x's, so those can go together. We've got minus 9 and minus 4. Makes it a minus 13. And that still equals your 59. Almost done here. Add that 13 over to the 59. 3x now equals, we've got our 59. We're going to add our 13 to that, so that's our 72. We will now divide by our 3. And that leaves us with our value of x to be now 24. We need to go ahead and get our 3 parts. So let's work with the short side. Short side is x minus 9. So plug in that 24. So that's 24 minus 9. So that gives us then, what, 15? 24 minus 9. Yep, that comes out to be 15. And what is this in? Inches, right? So that's going to be in terms of inches. So we'll label the short side as 15 inches. What about the middle side? Okay, we need to get that one. The middle was this. So the middle is x minus 4. And so that's 24 minus 4. And so that's a 20 inches, or 20-inch piece. And then our last one here. Okay, our last one is the longest side. And that was x, so that's 24 inches. So those are the 3 pieces of our sandwich. So 15 inches, 20 inches, and 24. I think we'll go ahead and stop with this one, but let's go ahead and talk about our homework here, because I think we've covered enough material today. We will work with more of these applications next time. And we have covered quite a bit of material, so let's talk about our homework. Our homework, you can do 2.1, you can do them all. 2.2, you can do them all. 2.3, you can do them all. Because 2.3 and 2.4 are put together, so 2.3 and 4, you can do them all. Okay, now what about 2.5? This is the one I'm going to have to see which ones we can do. For 2.5, we can do the first question, because we've covered one of those. Question number 2, we've done that one, or something like it. We haven't done 3 yet. We have not done 4 or 5 yet. 6 we haven't done either. Neither 7. 8 we haven't done. 9 and 10 we haven't done. 11, you can look at 11. There's not much to 11. 12 we haven't done. 13, you can try that one. Okay, 14, you can do that one. Looks like. And let's see, 15. Yep, you can do 15 as well. So those are the only ones that you can do out of 2-5. So you can do all of 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, and 4. They're combined together, and 2-5. Now, it really won't take you that long to go through these. The only ones that may take a little bit of time are 2-5. Because especially 2-1 and 2-2, there's really not much to them. It's just moving things around.